this video, we're going to look at the summary of the cost behavior concepts when we're looking at variable and fixed cost. So often it's called variable costing or direct costing. Okay, and so I've got variable manufacturing costing, which is direct materials, direct labor, and only the variable factory overhead, but the fixed factory overhead is different and it's treated differently. So this is about understanding how my two different costs behave in certain changes. So these are all charts that you really should know. The effect of changing an activity level. So if it's a variable cost, the total amount will increase and decrease proportionately with the activity level. So it'll go the same direction for the total cost, but the per unit remains the same. This was the example of the $10 part we had to buy. A fixed cost remains for the total amount remains the same regardless of the activity level, but the per unit will increase and decrease in the opposite direction. And here's some examples of variable cost, fixed cost, and mixed cost. Okay, these are things that you need to know if you actually worked in a manufacturing facility. Okay, so now that we understand our costs, which are the fixed, the variable, and the mixed, the variable, the fixed, and the mixed, we're going to look at the relationship between the cost, the volume, and the profit. And this really is, they do initial CVP, and it is always about the relationship. What is the effect of one of these if these other ones change? That's really what we're looking at. Now, there's a lot of little formulas getting ready to come up, so you're going to want to make sure you write all the formulas down. You just need to have a little notepad with formulas written down. That will help you tremendously. And here's why we need to have a CVP analysis. We need to know how to set our selling prices. We need to analyze what happens to my volume on profits. What happens when changes in cost and changes in volume, how does it affect my profit? That gives me an idea of how to do marketing strategy. So the very first formula we're going to look at is something called contribution margin, or CM, it's often called. And here's how it's calculated. Sales minus variable cost. Often the CM can be done per unit, or it can be done as a whole. So really think of this as my 1A class. Sales minus cost of goods sold would equal my gross profit or gross margin. It's the same thing. So this contribution margin actually kind of covers my fixed cost if you think about it like that. So here we go. Here's my sales. Here's my sales price per unit, my variable cost per unit, and my fixed cost. So here's my contribution margin. Okay, 20 minus 12 is $8 per unit times my 50,000 units. And this is going to give me, and then I subtract my fixed cost. Remember, fixed costs are always a whole dollar amount like this. And then I'm going to have, oh, excuse me, guys. I'm going to have income from operations of 100,000. So this is contribution margin, CM. This is a formula you need to know. The next one we're going to look at is the CM ratio, or the contribution margin ratio. And you need to have the contribution margin in order to calculate this one. So it's really the same thing as the CM, except it's in a percent. It's contribution margin divided by sales. So if I go back and look, I take my contribution margin of 400,000, which was on the previous slide. Let's take a look. Right here, 400,000, and my sales is $1 million. So my contribution margin is 40%. So why do you need to know this? Well, this is actually helpful whenever your sales goes up or down. You can measure it in sales dollars, okay? Or if I want to add something to my sales by increasing my units, it'll help me understand how much my profit will increase. So if I wanted to add, so basically here's another little formula that the CM ratios will help you. Change in income per operation is what's the change in my sales dollars times my percent of contribution margin ratio. So we know, what did we do? 40%, I think. Yeah, 40%. So here we go. If I want to add 80,000 in sales, because I'm going to sell an additional 4,000 units, and my income is going to increase by 32,000, my income from operations. Here's what's going to tell me. it'll tell me how much more money I'm going to make. 80,000 is the change in my sales dollars times my 40%. So that's going to increase my income by 40%, which is going to be equal to $32,000. So you can totally, hopefully, understand why you could actually use this to help you understand your profit. And so here's my same chart again. Before income was 100,000, but now I've increased it to 132. Okay, so this is contribution margin and contribution margin ratio. This is the end of video number 3, and we'll pick up on video number 4.